Hello everyone, and welcome to the debrief episode of S.A.G.E Network's Project 1, the Water Experiment. Does your mind have the power to reshape reality? 30 days ago, give or take, I set out to find the answer to this question. To that end, I designed an experiment based on the findings of Masaru Emoto. Admittedly, I was somewhat skeptical about Mr. Emoto's results. It is hard to believe, and especially for a skeptical mind, that your thoughts and intentions alone can affect the external reality in a direct way. I didn't have high hopes when I started the experiment, but I designed it with great rigor, making sure to leave no room for speculations and accidents. And what I found has challenged my views of reality. Let me first briefly recap the setup of the experiment. It is very simple and designed to be replicated by anyone who's interested, because even though I did it myself and I had everything documented, there's always room for doubt unless you directly experience the whole process. So I made sure that the experiment can be replicated easily in any household using basic household items and ingredients. I had 2 jars or vials of the same size and material and equal measures of clean water and rice. I used uncooked rice because it's easier to measure and less messy to work with. But I do know that some people performed a similar experiment with cooked rice and have claimed to see significant results. What I did next is I combined the ingredients, meaning the water and the rice, inside the jars. I closed them up and labeled them, one for negative intentions and one for positive ones. Next, I made sure to arrange storage locations in such a way that both jars are receiving the same amount of light and are stored in the same conditions in terms of temperature and humidity, but are far away apart from each other so that they're not affecting each other energetically, just in case that's a factor. For the next 30 days, I would take both jars one at a time out of their storage, and for 1 minute, with a timer, I would project positive intentions into one jar and negative intentions into the other. In retrospect, I did not have to go for 30 days, but that is what I pledged in the initial video, and that's what I ended up doing. However, I started seeing significant results much earlier than that. So if the duration scares you off, you don't have to worry, because even if you do it for 15 days or even less, that's still enough time for the experiment to work. So 2 minutes a day for 15 days is not a big commitment, but the results have potentially big repercussions for how you perceive reality, your role in it, and the significance of your thoughts, intentions, words, and actions. What I found is, the further I went into the experiment, the more difficult it became to project the negative intentions into the negative jar. As I was seeing the results and I was seeing the impact of my words and thoughts in a very physical and visceral way, which in turn, of course, made me pay more attention to how I think and feel, talk and behave in general. If you commit to the experiment, it is important to remember to not apologize to the negative jar, because that would contaminate the experiment. You can do so after the experiment is concluded, but do be aware of this potential difficulty. Another thing is, you won't always be in a mood for the positive or the negative projections, in which case, just saying words that you associate with either negative or positive intentions is enough. Even repeating the same 1, 2, or 3 words, like love, healing, beauty, harmony for the positive one, and fear, hatred, sickness for the negative one. And if you felt any frustration during the day, this is something you can actually leverage for the experiment as well by projecting your frustrations into the negative jar. And in that case, it can work similarly to the visualization exercises where you take your negative experiences or frustrations from the day and project them into an imaginary treasure chest or tie them to imaginary helium balloons and release them into the universe. There's many variations of this exercise, and I will be making an episode about it in my Spiritual Essentials series. But going back to the subject at hand, you don't have to stick to a specific structure in terms of how you project your intentions. It can be words, thoughts, emotions. It can be a combination, and it can be different things on different days, depending on what works best in the moment. As I promised in the initial video, I have been taking pictures of the jars each day for the 30 days. And I believe I already teased you enough, so I'm going to go ahead and show you the results. Now, you might have noticed that I'm not the best photographer and I don't have the best, most consistent setup. On top of that, at some point by the end of the experiment, it became more and more difficult to see the difference between the two jars. And that part is on me, because at the beginning of the experiment, I started off by shaking the jars each time, so that any residue becomes more visible. In retrospect, I realized that it was a mistake, because that way you couldn't really appreciate how dramatic the difference was. And once I realized that this approach was a mistake, I couldn't go back and start taking pictures of the jars without shaking them for the sake of consistency. At least not for the purpose of the slideshow. What I did do, in order to show you how dramatic the difference really was, I took this picture, and I don't know if it's the lighting or what else, maybe just my imagination, but the rice and the water in the positive jar is almost glowing, and honestly, I was pretty amazed. And to further show you that I am using the same jars and I didn't mix anything or there's no foul play involved, I created this following time-lapse video where I shook up the jars and then I just let them sit for 7 hours, which is as long as my phone's memory allowed me to film, which is kind of a shame because I did want to go for longer. But even with that, you can already tell by the end of the time lapse that the positive jar became much clearer and the negative one remained muddy. I have the two jars with me here right now, and you can see how much difference there is between them. And when I shake them, if you look closely, you will notice that the rice in the negative jar takes longer to fall back to the bottom than the positive one. So this is what happens now when I shake the two jars, which is very interesting because it's different from what was happening initially. And full disclosure, it's already been more than 30 days since the end of the experiment, a few days more, and the conditions in the jars have changed. Not so much the negative one, it's still as muddy as it was, maybe even muddier, but the positive jar developed some interesting features, all kinds of stuff swimming around. And it never gets completely muddy, even after I shake it multiple times. It looks almost like something is binding the rice together. What I would really love to do is have somewhere to analyze the water. And so if you have a lab, you're in contact with someone who has access to a lab or appropriate equipment that you think might help with the analysis, or you have the knowledge that you can share with me, so maybe I could do it from home. Any way you can help, please reach out either in the comments or the Discord group, which will be linked in the description, and I'll be happy to hear from you and take this experiment even further. It is one thing to contemplate concepts such as affirmations, manifestation, the power of thoughts and words, telepathy, and everything connected to the power of thoughts and intentions influencing the external reality. It's another thing to witness them so directly. Running this experiment made me more enthusiastic about my daily practices such as meditation and my daily affirmations. It gave me more motivation to stay present and grounded in the moment and take care about my self-image and pay attention to the clarity of my goals. The implication of this experiment go beyond simple curiosity and even beyond personal growth. This experiment and many other similar ones that are being conducted around the world as we speak will have no choice but to profoundly affect our understanding of the world, science, and philosophy. And my hope is it will motivate us to think more deeply about our place in the universe and make us more patient, introspective, and careful with how we treat each other and the world around us. If we see each for ourselves from our personal experience that our intentions do affect reality, it will force us to be more responsible and careful with our thoughts, words, and actions. But on the other hand, it will also open exciting avenues for improving our health, inspiring creativity, and giving us more hope and clarity in the pursuit of our goals. As amazing and profound the implications are, I'm just one person performing the experiment in front of a camera, and so if you are someone like me with a skeptical mind watching this video, the effect on you wouldn't be as profound as if you tried it for yourself. So I encourage you to try that, because that's the only way to know for sure. And the more people do that, the more consistent the results are, the more paradigm shifting the concept becomes. And no matter how rigorously I tried to set up the experiment to make sure that it's reliable and no factors are introduced that would muddy the results, there's always room for improvement. For example, one could use multiple jars, let's say 3 for positive and 3 for negative intentions. Because with just one jar of each, there is a small chance of a coincidence. What if one of them was contaminated with some kind of bacteria that the other one wasn't? Even though I made sure that they are both cleaned and cleansed before the experiment. But to eliminate the possibility completely, it is better to have multiple jars of each. And maybe a control group, which is just sitting there with no intentions spoken to it. And so I invite you to poke more holes in my method, but if you do so, I hope that you also perform the experiment yourself. Because it's very easy to criticize others' work while not doing the work yourself. So I really hope that you wouldn't do that, or if you do want to provide criticism but for some reason you cannot perform the experiment yourself, at least be as constructive as possible, and I will appreciate that too. And if you decide to go ahead and do the experiment, please share the results either in the comments or on my Discord or wherever else you want to do that. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it made you think and perhaps you discovered something new. I'm looking forward to see what the viewers can come up with in their own experiments, whether you use the exact same setup or you improve upon it. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And with that, thank you for watching. Please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel to see more experiments like this, hands-on, practical, and hopefully paradigm changing, as well as videos in my Spiritual Essentials series, where I talk about practical spirituality tools that are already proven to be useful, such as meditation, breath work, or gratitude, the topic of the last episode that I've posted. Check out the links in the description for my website, Discord, and other ways to support me or engage with me more. And I'll see you again. Good luck.